This is the Louie Tee Network.
Louie Tee Live. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome to another edition of the 2017 season preview and prediction show. I, of course, am your set man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me on the program. Have Twitter available tonight at In the Lab Room, as you can see down below in one of the television screens flashing on your monitor. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Make sure you like the Facebook page In the Lab Room. And also make sure that you subscribe to the page Louie Tee Network on YouTube. Going to be on Twitter tonight. So if you're out there watching and you want to comment while on Twitter, hashtag Louie Tee Live. Also, if you happen to be watching on the live stream on YouTube and want to comment in the comment section of the live stream, please feel free to do so. Chop it up with anyone else that may be there. And also, if you want to have your comment read, use the hashtag Louie Tee Live. So, we're going to talk NFC North here tonight on the program as we're in the second day of the two-a-days on the program. We'll resume two-a-days next week, picking up where we left off. I think we will be in the NFC East and the AFC West starting Tuesday, August 29th, and wrapping up the series August 30th with the final two divisions, the NFC West and the AFC South. So tonight, it's the NFC North. We've already knocked down the AFC North, and it's ironic that these two divisions play each other this year, so should be rather interesting. Trying to recall what I did earlier in the day. This is the only drawback to not writing down my wins and losses, is that I don't want to give out two wins or two losses or one of those types of deals. But in any event, we're going to try and do these schedules, get through as many of these teams as possible in as efficient a manner as possible, and then have you guys comment as to what you think these teams are going to do. And so I want to jump into the first team of this division, the team that finished in first. We're going to go in numerical order of the way they finished in the season last year. And that team that won the division, the Green Bay Packers, the team that generally wins this division. Vikings won it 2 seasons ago. Packers reclaimed the mantle last year. And so we will start there with the Green Bay Packers and their offseason acquisitions and what they were able to accomplish last year. I predicted 14-2. You know, I'm a huge Green Bay guy. Aaron Rodgers is my guy. I love watching him play the game of football. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. And he struggled a little bit last year. It was odd. It was an odd season for Aaron Rodgers because when you look at his numbers don't say and state struggle. But if you watch the way the season unfolded, he wasn't himself for about the first 8 to 10 weeks of the season. Then he got really hot at the end of the season. And boy, did the Packers come on strong, winning the division, coming off the pace and taking it from Detroit the final week of the season, mowing through teams in the playoffs, going on the road and beating Dallas in an epic thriller, and before fizzling out in the NFC Championship game versus the Atlanta Falcons. He was a one-man band. He was a one-man show. The defense was horrendous last year, and that's the first storyline with this football team, obviously, is can this Packers defense be better? They were terrible last year, and they didn't get enough pressure on the quarterback. The secondary was in shambles, a lot of injuries. Sam Shields never was fully healthy, always dealing with the concussions, and he's no longer a Green Bay Packer now. And they had a young secondary. Ladarius Gunter was out there, and all of the young guys were out there getting baptized. And so it was just not a good look for a Packers defense that struggled to keep pace with the offense that was struggling in its own right. The run game was a mess at one point. There were no running backs and had to move Ty Montgomery, ex-college football running back / receiver, to running back. And he had to carry the bulk of the load. It was a mess, but as Aaron Rodgers typically does in Aaron Rodgers fashion, he got these boys right in time enough for the playoffs to make a run deep into the postseason. And so the 14-2 was a little bit hasty on my part. Thought they would be a lot better than what they were. And I fall victim to this with the Packers every year, because every year they got Aaron Rodgers, and I think they got a shot to beat anybody in any given week at any time. And if the defense is better, and I've had a chance to look at them up close and personal, played the Packers, Redskins did in week 2 of the preseason. Again, don't want to take preseason and run with it, but man, did that secondary, did that defense in general look good. And so if they can be better defensively, look out for the Green Bay Packers. That being said, they went 10-6 last year, so I was way off by a full 4 games. I don't know if I was that far off on a good team the whole season last year. I think the furthest I was off was 3 games with a good team. With the bad teams, of course, you can be 4, 5, 6 games off the pace. You think the Carolina Panthers, after making the Super Bowl, are going to be good, and they're not. And you go 11-5 with them. You're 6 games off, 5, 6 games off the pace. You think Cincinnati's going to be good coming off the season they had in 2015, and they're not. Yeah, you're 4 or 5 games off the pace. With a good team, you're generally not that far off, but wow. But 5-1 in the division, and it ultimately was good enough for them to win the NFC North. Let's talk about some offseason acquisitions. Devon House is a guy that was in Green Bay once upon a time. He's now back in Green Bay. Martellus Bennett and Lance Kendricks come over at the tight end position, and that seems to be a position of note for the Packers. They haven't had a good pass-catching, consistent threat at the tight end position since Jermichael Finley, and we know how brief that was. He was like a shooting star in Green Bay till the injuries set in. Last year, Jared Cook Jr. was good when available, but the problem was he wasn't available often enough. But we saw what he was capable of in some games last year when he was healthy. Aaron Rodgers loves having a tight end that can catch the football and do things after the catch, and Martellus Bennett looks like he's going to fill that void for them well. And don't count out Lance Kendricks as a guy that can also catch the football and make some things happen. So I think he's going to be very pleased with what he has now at the tight end position to go along with the weapons he has out wide at receiver. Jari Evans comes in to help try to fortify the interior of that offensive line. They lost quite a bit of stuff along the offensive line, and he's going to come in, provide some depth, and probably even start inside at guard for them. Ricky John Francois comes over from the Washington Redskins to give them some depth along the defensive line. And they re-signed Nick Perry to a long-term deal, which was a necessity. They don't get enough pressure off the edge, in my opinion. You lose Jay Pep, who was just a specialized pass rusher last year. You had to bring Nick Perry back. And when he's on and he's healthy, Nick Perry is a guy that can get you double-digit sacks in this league. You go to key losses, and the running back position was gutted in the offseason, and it needed to be honest with you, because of all the injuries sustained at this position, because of the guys that weren't healthy, the guys getting up there in age. James Starks, a guy that has been around forever for the Packers, just simply couldn't do it at a high level anymore, and, oh, by the way, couldn't stay healthy. Christian Michael, a guy that came in late in the season and tried to provide them with a little bit of a spark, and just another body out there at the running back position, no longer on the team. And Eddie Lacy, the biggest name of the group, no longer in Green Bay. His weight was constantly an issue, and so was his health while in Green Bay. And they had enough of their former second-round pick out of Alabama. I think he was a second-round pick for the Green Bay Packers once upon a time. He's now in Seattle. Sam Shields, cornerback, was a really good player for them, but just simply could not shake the concussions that he sustained throughout the course of his career. And it looks like his career may be done, and he was still a relatively young football player. Jared Cook Jr. talked about the tight end position being enhanced. I think this is one of those moves where you make, and it's addition by subtraction. You lose Jared Cook Jr., but you add 2 tight ends that I think are going to come in and give you more flexibility in the pass game and even a little something in the run game as well, more so than Jared Cook Jr. would as a blocker. Offensive lineman, you lose J.C. Treader as an interior offensive lineman, and a guy that gave you some depth along that front. TJ Lang is the biggest loss, though. He was a versatile guy, guard, could even play tackle in a pinch. And so he was a Pro Bowl type of player for you in Green Bay. He's moved on in the division. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And Micah Hyde is a guy that I absolutely love, and that's one that's going to sting, I believe. Core special teamer, solid in the punt return game, a guy that you could move around as a safety, as a corner, blitz him, was good against the run. I loved Micah Hyde. I loved his game. I think he's going to be a guy that's sorely missed. And Julius Peppers, like I said, he was reduced to just a pass rusher on third downs and in obvious passing situations last year. I think you can do without Julius Peppers, but I think that's one of the areas of need for this team is the ability to get to the quarterback consistently. And so we'll see what the Packers are able to do there. So we go from all of those things to the Packers' schedule in 2017. And this is a team that, like I said before, I'll say it again, I'm usually high on the Packers every year because I'm absolutely a huge fan of Aaron Rodgers and the way he plays the game of football. You say what you want about him being arrogant and pompous and his teammates don't like him and he may not be a great leader, so forth and so forth. Aaron Rodgers is the effing man in my book. And because of Aaron Rodgers, even when things don't go right in Green Bay, they still go right in Green Bay. Remember, everyone was talking about firing Mike McCarthy last year and what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers. Hell, I was saying, what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers? Nothing was wrong with. Go look at his numbers. You tell me if something was wrong with Aaron Rodgers. Go watch him in the opening round of the playoffs versus the Giants. You tell me if something's wrong. The Giants were one of the best defenses in the league last year. Going into the playoffs, they were sharp. They were razor sharp, red hot. Go look and tell me if you thought something was wrong with Aaron Rodgers in that game. Go look at him against the Cowboys. Go look at that throw to Jared Cook to set up the game-winning field goal. Go tell me something's wrong with Aaron Rodgers. Got to be kidding me. Anyway, let's look at this schedule. So we start week 1, and right off the bat, they give us some good football. Packers at home. That's going to be America's game of the week versus the Seattle Seahawks at the crib. Like the Packers, to start the season off at home with a W is not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm confident that they'll find a way to get it done versus the Seattle Seahawks at the crib. Then in week 2, you go on the road to take on the Atlanta Falcons. I don't like this spot for you. I think the Falcons are game and they're good enough to get it done there. And so I am going to give you an L there on the road. New stadium, there's no way I see you going in. And this is the second year in a row the NFL has asked you to christen someone's stadium on Sunday Night Football in week 2. I don't like it either. Don't kill me. I'm just a messenger. And I think you're going to suffer the same fate you suffered a season ago in week 2, christening someone else's brand new stadium. They're going to be raucous. It's going to be rocking. They're going to be pissed off. And I think you're going to take an L in that game. But then you come back home the following week versus Cincinnati Bengals. I think you're able to gather your wits and get a W there and get back on the track as you go to 2-1 on the season after that one. Then you have a short week. You're at home. I always, unless the home team in that case is a bad team and they're playing a superior team, I always tend to err on the side of caution and go with the home team. These Thursday night games are a train wreck for players. And so the team at home has a distinct advantage of being in their own bed, not having to travel, not having a short week of practice, like the Packers on this quick turnaround at home versus the Bears in the division to get it done on Thursday Night Football. Then you get a 10-day layoff, so that's going to benefit you because you got to go on the road, America's game of the week versus America's team, Jerry's boy, the Dallas Cowboys, in what should be a great contest. That's you returning to the scene of the crime. Cowboys are probably going to be amped. No Ezekiel Elliott, however. If he were playing, I would probably go with the Cowboys. No Ezekiel Elliott here, though, allows me to take you on the road and get a W in Big D. That defense still a big question mark for the Cowboys. Packers offensively, if they're healthy, should be able to go in there, put up some points, and I think enough points to win against a dangerous Dallas Cowboys football team. You're then at Minnesota in week number 6. This is a tricky one. I think that the Vikings are good enough, smart enough, and doggone it, people like the Vikings, including me in this game. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings to hand you a loss for your first time in the division as they get it done at home and protect their dome. You then next week go on to the New Orleans Saints back at Lambeau, and that should be fun. 2 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks squaring off, but the Saints want no part of what you guys have to offer in this football game, and because of that, you get the W as you head into your bye week at 5-2 on the season, going into your Week 8 bye. So a nice bye that splits the season relatively in half, and you come off the bye, Monday Night Football at the crib, family business versus the Detroit Lions. I love you in this spot. The Lions just snapped their losing streak versus you in at Lambeau 2 seasons ago. They're not going to beat you in Lambeau. It took them like 30 years to finally beat you there once. I don't see them doing it again anytime soon as long as Aaron Rodgers is at the helm. As we go to your next game at Chicago. Remember, Chicago is a team that you struggle with. Whether they're good, they're bad, they're ugly, they find ways to muck up the game and make it tough, especially when the game is at Soldier Field. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, they went in, Brett Favre had his jersey retired and all of that good stuff, and they went in there in a wet, nasty night, and they beat you on a Thursday, on Thanksgiving. And I remember a game very vividly when you needed it for the playoffs, and Aaron Rodgers had just come back after being out for like the last 6 or 7 weeks, and you had to have it to make the playoffs, and the Bears had you on the ropes. Last year, it took a Hail Mary to Jordy Nelson to steal one from the Bears. The Bears know you. And because the Bears know you, the Bears can give you an L. And I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Maybe it'll be Mitchell Trubisky. In any event, I like the Bears in this spot to give you a loss here. The Bears just somehow, some way know how to play you. And that's what family business is all about. Even if those 2 teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And the Bears know how to take care of some family business versus the Green Bay Packers. Home for the Ravens. Love you in this spot. The Ravens are anemic on offense, and that spells trouble for a team that can't score against a team that can. You then go to Pittsburgh, Sunday Night Football. I don't like this spot for you. I don't like this spot for you at all. I don't remember what I gave the Steelers here, but I'd like to think that I gave them a W at the crib, Sunday night, at home, raucous crowd. I expect them to take care of home. If Roethlisberger's healthy, they should be able to come away with that win and drop you in that football game. You then come home for Tampa. And I tell you what, if this game were in Tampa, I might have gave the Young Bucks a look. But this game is in Green Bay at Lambeau. No chance for the Bucks to go in there. The Bucks are a scary team. Defensively, you never know what you're going to get from those boys. They may show up and give you one of those defensive gems like we saw last year when they played Seattle and gave up like 11 points and beat Seattle like 16-11. If they come with one of those types of efforts, remember, we've seen teams go into Lambeau and force the Packers to struggle like the Rams did last year, even though they were only able to muster 10 points. Aaron Rodgers struggled. I think he threw 3 picks in that game. They still won 24-10 because the defense actually showed up against a bad Rams offense. If you get one of those eggs and duds laid at the crib against this Buccaneers team, you could lose that game, but I see you winning. Browns, you're in Cleveland for that one. Doesn't matter. They're the Browns. You're the Packers. You find a way to win that game. Doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be a W. Get it done. At Carolina, I think you're going to win this game. I remember I gave this one to you. I think this is one of those return to the scene of the crime type of games. 2015 when the Panthers were riding high. You go in there and they were smashing you. I mean, the score was something like 31-7 before you made a hell of a comeback, and then those boys finally put you down late in the game. Aaron Rodgers couldn't get the football into the end zone on fourth down, and the Panthers held on for the victory. I think you're going to go back there and exact a measure of revenge for that 2015 loss to the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Then you get the Vikings at home on Sunday Night Football on a Saturday as you're looking for a little measure of revenge. Vikings got you earlier in the season in Minnesota. I think you're going to get them back this time in Green Bay. And remember, the year that they won the division 2 seasons ago, they were able to go into Green Bay week 17 and win the division. I don't know if the Packers really cared. I don't want to say they didn't, but no, I don't know if either team really wanted to play. I think it was Seattle. The winner got Seattle, and I didn't think either one of the teams really wanted any part of Seattle. But in any event, you lost that game to Minnesota. They came into Green Bay and beat you. I don't see them doing that, though, this time around. And remember, last year, as we finish up the season, it was the exact same game. It was on Sunday night. It got flexed to Sunday night. Winner takes all. Winner wins the division. Lions, Packers, and you went into Detroit and you beat the Lions. And I see you doing the exact same thing in Week 17 this season, beating the Detroit Lions in Detroit and wrapping up your season. So, as I customarily do, I lean heavily towards W's with this Green Bay Packers football team. And so, looking at their schedule, 12-4 is what I've drawn up for this Packers football team. They're probably going to lose a game or two more than I gave them, and a game that they have no business losing. It could be the Dallas game on the road, which is an acceptable loss. Could be the game at Carolina that could easily turn into a loss. You could beat it at Atlanta at home. You could, lose to Minnesota twice or Detroit once. Who knows? We'll see. But 12-4 is the way I have it shaken out. And in the division, I got you 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, I got you 4-2 in the division. So 12-4 overall, 4-2 divisional mark. Let's go ahead and document that. So we'll have that on file. Green Bay, 12-4 with a 4-2 divisional mark. And so let's take to Twitter. Let's see if we got any action there. If not, which we usually don't, we will then move it to the stream and see what you guys have to say on the stream. So let's get to the stream and see if you guys have comments there. See what we got. All right. Marquismo says, I'm blowing up his emails with these videos. Hey, look, man, that's what I try to do. Try to flood your inbox so you can come join me on these streams. Let's see now. Nick Riley says, you know what it is, fam. My squad is coming back for that top spot in the division. We will see. We will see. Sean Mack just showed up. It says 3-13 for my Browns, bro. That's it. Taking your ass to rehab. No more cook crack. I got y'all 4-12, actually. You actually got another W in there. Let's see. Nick is talking trash, says Rodgers doesn't want to see his defense. We'll see. Marquismo says, Steelers trade Lucas Crowley to the Skins for Deshaun Phillips. I guess that's just a depth move. Matthew Lynch says, Giants D-line last year was really good, and they got eaten up like I was watching a college team versus the Packers. And that's Aaron Rodgers for you in a nutshell. When he's on, he's surgical. Nick is talking about his Vikings, and we'll get to them next as they finish second in this division. Or, excuse me, we'll get to them third as they finished third in this division last year. He says, hashtag roads closed, and they re-signed him. We'll talk a lot about the Vikings when we get there. Nick Riley says, not an easy road for the Packers. Call me crazy, Lou, but I'm telling you right now, Packers will not win more than 10 games. I find that very hard to believe. They're a good football team, and I think their schedule is favorable in terms of home matchups. They only got a couple of really tough road games. At Pittsburgh, at Atlanta come to mind. Obviously, the ones in the division are always tough, but they seem to navigate the divisional road games well enough for my liking. Sean Mack says, I think the Packers go 9-7, 10-6 at best. Just my opinion. Okay. Not a ringing endorsement for the Packers. Cubone says, you gave Pittsburgh the loss to Green Bay. Did I? So let's go back. And I gave Pittsburgh an L for this game, and I gave the Packers an L. Okay. If you say so, I'll give Green Bay the W there because I don't put it past them to be able to go in there and win that game. So I trust them more than I trust the Steelers because at that point in the season, I think Roethlisberger might actually be hurt. So that puts them at 13-3. I don't think they're going 13-3. Personally, they're going to lose a game somewhere in there, but 13-3 it is for the Green Bay Packers. 4-2 in the division. So let's get back to some of your comments. See what we got. Appreciate that, Cubone. He says he has Green Bay going 11-5. Nick Riley says, Lou, 10-6, no better. I'm telling you right now, we ain't playing games. They will lose to my squad both games, facts only, and Lions will most likely get one. I don't know if the Lions get any from these boys. They seem to find a way to beat the Detroit Lions. And Nick says Packers could mess around and lose the first 3 games. Let's look at those first 3 games again. There's no way that they're losing the first 3 games. They're not losing to both Seattle and Cincinnati at home. They could lose to either or. That's possible. I do think they're going to lose to the Atlanta Falcons in week 2, though. But I don't see them losing both of those games. And they could easily lose to the Cowboys. I mean, there's some games. They could lose to the Lions once. They could lose to the Panthers on the road. They could lose to the Steelers. I actually think I probably should have given the Steelers that game. But I always side with the Packers. I just have this thing. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. Aaron Rodgers does that to me. He mesmerizes me, and I fall into the trap every year. Sort of like how everyone every year picks Detroit as their trendy pick to do something. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers are my pick every year to be the team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl because it's Aaron Rodgers. And if the defense does their part, he's going to do his part, and they're going to have a shot. But you go from the Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay Packers to the Detroit Lions. A surprise team last year. They led this division for most of the season last year. It was crazy. The Vikings got off to this rousing start at like 5-0, maybe even made it to as much as 6-0. I think they were 5-0 before they hit the bye and things turned south for the Vikings. But the Lions were right there every step of the way. And when the Vikings started to falter, they took over this division. The Packers were struggling. And the Lions, for much of the season, led the NFC North division. But as we all know, all good things must come to an end. And they simply weren't equipped with enough in the tank down the stretch to hold off the Packers, who came and took the division away from them in Week 17 in Detroit, nonetheless. But I predicted them 7-9. I was off by 2 games. I didn't think they would be in the thick of things in terms of the playoffs, and they ultimately made the playoffs. And they shouldn't have made the playoffs. The Redskins should have made it to the playoffs, but they pissed away their opportunities down the stretch. But they snuck in the back door and was promptly put to sleep in the first round of the playoffs. by the Seattle Seahawks, but none, and they had a chance in that game as well. But nonetheless, 7-9, 2-4 in the division. They ended up being 3-3 in the division. So I was off by a game there, off by 2 on their overall record. So I wasn't that far off, but 9-7 was good enough to get them into the dance, and they were able to give the Seahawks a little run for their money, but wasn't able to get it done. Offseason acquisitions. They had to fortify the offensive line a little bit. And so they go out and get guard TJ Lang, wrestle him away from the Green Bay Packers. So that's a double whammy. You know, teams in the division love handing out double whammies, weakening one divisional foe while strengthening their roster all the while. And that's what they did with that move of TJ Lang. And they also get offensive tackle Rick Wagner. A lot of people were surprised how much money he commanded on the free agent market, snatched him away from the Baltimore Ravens. And it's a good thing that they did because they lost Riley Reif and their other starting offensive tackle, Taylor Decker, injured himself in offseason camp. And I forgot to also add in, while we're talking offensive linemen, Robinson from the Rams. They traded for Robinson. Remember, he was the second overall pick in 2014 was Greg Robinson. And so now he's going to come in and he may have to start at left tackle while Taylor Decker is on the shelf for the first month or two of the season. So that's another offseason acquisition that I forgot to mention, but he is, in fact, a Detroit Lion. Our linebacker, Paul Worrilow, coming over, going to give them some depth at the linebacker position. No more DeAndre Levy, and he couldn't stay healthy anyhow. And so they're moving on from him. And also, you know, they made a big splash in the draft by selecting Jared Davis out of Florida. So they're really looking to rectify the interior of their defense at the linebacker position. Cornerback DJ Hayden, book's still out on him. Jury's still out on DJ Hayden as a corner in this league, but he'll come in, add speed to that secondary. Remember, you were hurting at the cornerback position across from Big Play Slay last season, and when he was out of the lineup, it was bad. He needs some help. You drafted Tease Tabor. You'll also go get DJ Hayden. We'll see if that revamped secondary is up to speed in that division where you're going to need them to be able to stop Aaron Rodgers and some of the explosive offenses around the league. Offensive, already had offensive lineman Rick Wagner. I actually meant to change that to Greg Robinson, and I didn't. But Akeem Spence, a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, free agent signee, comes over, gives you some depth on that defensive line. Is a guy that is stout against the run, going to be able to help you stop the run. And that's a guy that I like along that defensive line. Key losses, DeAndre Levy, like I said, unable to stay healthy. His time in Detroit was good, but it didn't end on a high note. Anquan Bolden, this is a guy you're really going to miss at the receiver position. He was so timely for you on third downs and in some late game situations. The one that comes to my mind, obviously being a Redskins fan, is that drive late in the game. Anquan Bolden catching a touchdown and breaking our hearts late in that ball game. He was massive for the Detroit Lions, especially on third downs and late game situations. Larry Warford and Riley Reif, both gone. Starting offensive lineman for you a season ago. Warford at guard, Riley Reif at right tackle. Former first-round pick, no longer with this organization. We'll tell you where he went. He also made a move in the division. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And last but not least, Kerry Hyder Jr. gone for the season. That's a big injury. He led this team in sacks a season ago. And you can't replace production in bagging quarterbacks. Kerry Hyder Jr. did that at an alarming rate last season. He's not going to be available. That one is going to sting for this Lions defensive front. So we go from all of the things that have occurred this offseason and what my prediction was for them last season to my prediction for them this season. Let's look at their schedule and start tallying up wins and losses. Week 1, home for the Cardinals. I like you in that game. I like you to be able to find a way to get it done. If you can't stop David Johnson, you will not win this game. I'm assuming that you'll be able to slow him down enough and force Carson Palmer to have to beat you and ultimately find a way to win. But David Johnson is a one-man wrecking crew, and if you decide and allow him to be exactly that, he will destroy you. You will lose that game, but I have you winning at this current moment. On the road at the Giants, don't like that spot. Love that Giants defense, and I don't think you're going to be equipped with enough firepower on the road against that defense to win. And that is also a primetime matchup. So on Monday night, that's a toughie. Early in the season, on the road, don't like that spot. You go home, though, for the Atlanta Falcons, and that's a tough one. I think I gave the Falcons the W there, and I think they can go into Detroit and win. I always feel like in Detroit is a trap game for anybody not named Green Bay or Minnesota. And so I could easily see you winning that game, but I think I gave the Falcons that game, and I think I trust them to go in there and find a way to win that game. Road, Vikings, week 4, don't like that spot. I simply don't like you on the road versus that defense. Think they're going to bang Matt Stafford up around a little bit and make it tough on him. And so I don't think I like you in that spot. Home for the Panthers. Can't quite remember what I did there. That seems like a spot where you could get a W. I think I gave you a loss there, though, if I'm not mistaken. I think you can win that game. I really do, but I think I gave the Panthers a win. So sticking with that, but that's a game I think you can easily win. But I'm not high on this Lions team, as you can tell. But I think that's one you may be able to sneak there. I'm not comfortable with all these home losses, though. I really think if I had to choose between the Panthers and the Falcons, I think you can beat the Panthers at home. But in any event, I got you beating the Saints. I do remember that I talked about how you always seem to go into New Orleans and win and have no problems doing so. I see you doing that. Then you got your bye week. So you go into the bye week. I could easily see this being 3-3 at the bye instead of 2-4. I honestly can. I think you're going to get one of these 3 between Atlanta, Minnesota, and Carolina. You're going to win one of those games. It's going to be one of the home ones, too. I think it's going to either be Atlanta or Carolina. If I had to choose, I'd go with Carolina. But in any event, you're 2-4 at this point. Going into week 8, coming off the bye, you're home, prime time, Sunday night football. I think I actually had you beating the Steelers in this game. I can't remember. That seems like a spot where the Steelers might have a letdown. I can't remember, but I'm going to give you the W there. You're coming off of bye week 2, prime time. I think you can get that one. I think I might have gave the Steelers a win there, though. Hold on, I'm trying to think. The Steelers were 11-5, and they lost to the Ravens. Let me check this is why it's important to check the data. They were 11-5, 4-2 in the division, so 2 of their losses came in the division. They lost 3 additional games. This may have been one of them. Green Bay may have been another one. So we'll ride with this. We'll ride with the W. And I'm pretty sure you guys out there will help me recall what I did. You guys seem to have better memories than I do. So you guys will get me in check. But I'm going to give them the W for now. On the road at Green Bay. On prime time. On Sunday night. They're 31 days. That's on Monday night. I definitely don't like you in that spot at all. So, obviously, you're getting an L there. Then we move on to the Browns at the crib. That's definitely a win. And see if we can't go on a little streak here. Road, Bears. I'm going to tell you what. Bears are gonna be a lot tougher than people think, but you struggle with the Bears in Chicago. I can't put my finger on why this is. I want to say the Bears got you at the crib last year. They went and they got you in Chicago last year. And they almost stole one from you in Detroit. And I think they almost did it with what's his face? Jimmy Clausen might have been that quarterback, and they almost stole one from you last year. Was it Jimmy? No, I'm thinking of like 2 years ago. It wasn't Jimmy Clausen. What's the bum that threw like 5 interceptions versus the Redskins last year? I can't think of it. Was it Jimmy Clausen? I don't know. I can't remember. I know Billy Ho went down and it was bad. They can beat you, man. You should win this game. You should win this game. But you won't. I'm not going to disrespect the Bears. I think the Bears are going to be better this year. John Fox is going to have these boys playing some ball, being competitive. Vikings at the crib. I think you split with the Vikings this year. I'm going to give you a W here. You had the Golden Tate game last year in overtime. A game that you probably should have lost. They blew that game at the end, if I'm not mistaken. But I think you could take those boys at the crib. On the road for Baltimore, I don't see you winning that game. On the road for Tampa, I don't see you winning that game either. Wow, this is really not going well for the Lions. I didn't think it would be this bad. You're going to beat the Bears this time around at the crib. You're on the road for Cincy. I don't like that spot for you. And you finish up at home, and I got Green Bay sweeping you. So that's another one. And another one. So we're going to double up on those L's. Double up. And boy, it's a lot of red, not a lot of green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 and 10 for the Lions. I think you're going to win at least one more game in here. I told you I didn't like this 3-game stretch of losses with the Falcons, Vikings, and Panthers. I think you're going to end up winning one of those games. I think you're going to end up 7 and 9, but 6 and 10 is what I got. And I'm pretty sure the viewers are going to tell me that I screwed up a couple of games and we'll have to come in here and modify. But in any event, I got the Lions at 6 and 10 until someone tells me otherwise. And in the division, I got them. And this is where they stunk it up last year. They were 3 and 3 in the division. And I told you, if you're not at least 3 and 3, you can't go to the show. And I think this is what's going to hurt them again this year. I think it's going to be worse this year, though. You get an L there, you get an L there, you get an L there. So you're 0 and 3 right off the bat in the division. And then you win one, and then you lose again. You can't be 1 and 5 in the division, can you? 0 and 1, 0 and 2, 0 and 3. Okay, you're 1-2 in the division. 2 and 4 in the division. That sounds about right. So we'll take to Twitter, which probably isn't going to yield us much of anything. And it does not. And so let's go to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. I'm pretty sure you guys will straighten me out. And I'm pretty sure Vikings or Lions fans watching are probably about to crucify me. And so I'm game. I'm ready. Throw it at me. Let's see what we got. See where we are. All right, here we go. The Cubone says, A-Rod is Louie Tee's man crush confirmed. Aaron Rodgers is my guy, man. I don't know what to say, man. Sean Mack is stupid, talking about the upper room and some of A-Rod's exes. Nick Riley says, not buying that the Lions run from last year. They had about 5 or 6 wins on the last drive of the game. They're going to come back down to earth this year. And I feel the same way. They could have lost the Colts game, first game of the season. Stafford takes them right down the field at the end and breaks the Colts' hearts. They had the Vikings game that I referenced. They beat the Redskins at the very end of that game. They had about 5 or 6 games where Matthew Stafford was just doing work at the very end and pulling out some nail biters. I don't see that being the case this year. Cubone says, not surprised you forgot about that bum Robinson. Him being a Rams fan, not a lot of kind words for Greg Robinson. Nick Riley says, no one's scared of anyone in that secondary other than Big Play Slay. Love his game. The rest of that secondary is soft. They re-signed Glover Quinn, who they like. I like Glover Quinn as well. I don't think he's soft. Moving right along. Sean Mack says, Lions going 5-11, maybe 6-10. I got him at 6-10, so that sounds about right. Nick Riley says, Lions will win 4 to 6 games at best this year. Hell, you people need to realize this squad isn't anything special. I won't lowball them with 4. I think 6. I think they're at the high end of what you said, 6, and I think 7 is right around where they'll end up, 6 or 7. High end 8 is the best I think they can do this year. Sean Mack says, you gave Schittsburg the win over the Lions. So if I gave the Steelers the win over the Lions, which I probably did, knowing me, that would put Detroit at 5-11. I don't think they're a 5-win team. I think they're more of a 6 or a 7-win team. But for purposes of this exercise, got to go with what I did before. And so if I gave the Steelers the win earlier, then that means the Lions must take the loss later. So let's change that and revise it. Got to document this. So that turns into a loss, and now they are now 5-11 instead of 6-10. This is not a representation of how I really feel, but I can only look at the games and tell you what I think. And I think they're going to lose more than they win for sure. So 5-11 as it stands right now. He says, my Browns can beat the Lions, bro. Is that game in Detroit? If that game is in Detroit, no, you're not. No, you're not going into Detroit and winning. If that game was in Cleveland, maybe. Maybe. Let's see. Any more comments? Cloud says he'll give the Lions 7 and 9. All right. That looks like it's it for comments on the Detroit Lions. So we move on from Detroit to a team that won the division the previous year and actually started out the season like gangbusters before falling flat on their face and ending up 8-8. And really injuries started to take effect on this roster and they just could not hold on. I'm talking about, of course, the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings started out the season 5-0, maybe even 6-0. And that dubious bye week showed up, if I'm not mistaken. And let me get my facts straight on this. I believe the bye week showed up and really kicked their ass. And from that point on, they weren't the same football team. They started the season off 5-0, had the bye week, and then they got their ass whooped after the bye. 4 straight losses before finally ending that losing streak. And damage was done, though. They end up 8-8 on the season. Sam Bradford set the NFL record for highest completion percentage in the league's history in a single season. That was out of necessity because the offensive line was so god-awful. So many injuries, so many guys in that lineup that had no business being in that lineup. And he had to throw the football quickly out of his hands out of mercy. And so North Turner quit in the middle of the season because the offensive line was bad and it just wasn't going well for him. And the run game was pathetic in Minnesota. And they weren't able to sustain the hot start to the season. I predicted 11-5 coming off of the division winning season the previous year when I think they, in fact, went 11-5 and beat the Packers in Week 17 and won that division. So I thought they could duplicate that, not win the division. I had the Packers obviously winning the division last year, but I thought 11-5 would be good enough for a wild card, and they would be a dangerous team that nobody wanted to see. Obviously, this prediction was made prior to the Teddy Bridgewater injury, so that changes things, obviously. I don't know what he would have done behind that offensive line, but he's a lot more mobile than Sam Bradford is, so who's to say? But obviously, the 11-5 prediction was pre-Teddy B injury. 3-3 in the division is what I had predicted. They ended up 8-8, 2-4 in the division. And after the 5-0 start, I thought my 11-5 looked damn good. Turned out to be all for naught, and I was off by 3 games. That's a little too far for my liking. And so we'll see if the Vikings can't get back on track this year. Look at their offseason acquisitions. Latavius Murray comes into the fold, and I think it's all about the young rook, Dalvin Cook, in the backfield. Latavius Murray's going to get his fair share of touches, but I think it's Dalvin Cook's show in that backfield. Latavius Murray is going to be a guy that's going to see the football and see the field, but I think it's going to be Dalvin Cook's show, like I said. But always want to have multiple backs. They still got the secret weapon, Jerick McKinnon, back there as well, so they got some stuff. Offensive linemen Mike Remmers and Riley Reif were added to this roster. Mike Remmers was plucked away from the Carolina Panthers, and Riley Reif was snatched away from the Detroit Lions. So, again, one of those double whammies in the division. Teams love to do this, poach away a player from a divisional foe, make their roster weaker, in the process making yours that much stronger. They also signed wide receiver Michael Floyd. Don't know his situation off the field and if he'll be suspended, but he's a big target receiver out there for them. Case Keenum, backup quarterback. With Sam Bradford being your starter, you got to have a backup quarterback. I don't know if I would consider Case Keenum a quality backup, but he's a backup in this league nonetheless. And Dayton Jones, another guy snatched away from a divisional foe, this time snatched away from the Green Bay Packers. He'll come in and see if he can't be a guy that can help them along their depth and rotation along the defensive line. You go to key losses, Adrian Peterson, even though he was of little help to them last season due to the injury, and behind that offensive line, I doubt he would have made a difference. Before the injury, he played in the first 2 games. He was awful in Tennessee. He was awful in the first 3 quarters of the Green Bay game before getting injured. I don't think he would have made much of a difference behind that offensive line, but nonetheless, he's an all-time great in Minnesota Vikings history, and he'll be a Hall of Famer. They'll retire his number. All of that is nice, fine, and dandy, but he's no longer on this roster. Time to turn the page. They also lose Matt Asiata. Didn't put him up here, but he was a guy that they felt comfortable handing the rock. I always would laugh at Matt Asiata because he was the guy that would average like 1.8 yards a carry. They'd give it to him 22 times, and he'd have like 59 yards, but he'd score 3 touchdowns. Anyway, Captain Munnerlyn no longer on this roster, and I was watching them in the slot, and I was watching ex-Clemson cornerback get his ass roasted. I actually tweeted about that. Watching them against Seattle, he was getting his ass roasted. His name, I can't remember it right now. It'll come to me, though. But, boy, was he getting his ass destroyed. He was getting torn a new asshole in the slot. They may have to do something about that. Offensive lineman Matt Khalil gone off the roster, as well as Jake Long, who was abysmal last year. He would go ahead and retired in the offseason. And Andre Smith goes back to Cincinnati, where he was at his best for the Bengals. And that was a one-year experiment that went nowhere fast. A wide receiver, Cordero Patterson, I thought he finally hit his stride as a receiver last year, and he's off to Oakland. Always a threat in the returns game to bust one as a kick returner, but he's no longer there. Charles Johnson, a huge disappointment after having a breakout season a mere 2 or 3 years ago. We thought big things were on the horizon for him, and it just never materialized. And Chad Greenway, another Viking great, calling it quits after probably a good 10 seasons, 9 or 10 seasons in Minnesota. And so that veteran presence in the locker room no longer there with Chad Greenway as well. So we go from all of those happenings in the offseason to the schedule. So we go wins and losses for the Minnesota Vikings. Going to start off the season on Monday Night Football. The first of 2 on Monday night in week 1. You know how they do it with the doubleheader. The Vikings will be at home taking on the New Orleans Saints. As you already know, I told you when I broke down the Saints that I thought this was going to be a loss for them. I like the Vikings at home to get off to a good start. I tell you what, though, if they don't contain Drew Brees and that running game, they could easily lose this football game, but I see them taking care of business there. At Pittsburgh the following week on the road, I don't like that spot for them, as that will be their first loss of the season. They then come back home and take on a young Buccaneers team that is hungry, that a lot of people think will be good this year. I, however, think they'll be okay, but not great. I actually think they will regress record-wise, but I think they're poised for a big breakout season next year, but this isn't the year, and I don't like them on the road against this Vikings team. Vikings then get another home game, this time in the division. So 3 out of your first 4 games are at the crib. You got to take advantage of this opportunity, and I think you will do exactly that, getting it done here versus the Lions at home to start the season off 3-1. You then have a Monday Night Football contest at the Bears. If I'm not mistaken, I watched the Bears whoop your ass last year on Halloween on a Monday night, if I'm not mistaken. Jordan Howard went off. The Bears defense suffocated your offense, and they busted y'all ass on Monday night last year in Chicago. Can they do it again? Maybe. Will they do it again? Probably not. But am I thinking about it? You damn right. Boy, I tell you, I really think the Bears can win this game. I do. And I got a feeling they're going to do it again. They did it to you once. I think they can do it to you again. Let's give the Bears that win, give you an L there. The next week, you're home for Green Bay. We already did that. That's a W for you at the crib. The first time you see the Packers in 2017. You then have a home game versus the Ravens. I like you in that spot, as you found out earlier in the night. And so we'll go a win there. You're at the Browns, but that's still a spot that I like you in. So we'll give you a W there. And this is where we hit the bye week. So you have a week 9 bye. So 8 games in the books. You look good at 6-2 going into the bye, but you look good at 5-0 going into the bye last year. And so let's see if you can keep that same energy after the bye. You go to Washington and you struggled against the Redskins last year. I think you can struggle against the Redskins again this season. So I think I'm going to give you another L against the Redskins. I think that's a game the Skins can get at the crib. If that game were in Minnesota, I would go against the Redskins, but it's in Washington. I think the Redskins can find a way to win that one. The following week, you go back home to take on the Rams. That, to me, is a scary trap game because the Rams can get after Sam Bradford and make him uncomfortable. And when Sam Bradford is uncomfortable, he makes mistakes. However, I think that they offensively, they're coming. And I love Sean McVay. You know that I do. I just don't think that they're going to be able. If that were in Los Angeles, I would think long and hard about that one. But because it's at home, I think you're going to be able to do enough to rattle the cage of Jared Goff and get the W there. Detroit. Let's go back and see what I did there because that's at Detroit. I think I gave them that one. I did give them that one. And I think they can win that one. So let's go back to Minnesota and give them the L that I gave them earlier when I gave the W to the Lions. I think the Lions can get that one at the crib. At Atlanta, I don't like that spot. I don't like it at all. And because of that, so the season, once again, going in the wrong direction. At Carolina, I don't like that. Wait a minute. I think I gave you the W. You're winning there last year and won. But it was because of some sloppy play by the Panthers and your special team stepped up. I don't recall what I did. That was one of those on the fence. Carolina could be out for revenge, but Minnesota might be game to go in there and win type of games. At Carolina, I probably sided with the Panthers. So I'm going to give you another L. You're on a nasty little slide here. 3-game losing streak now. So let's get this thing right. So you're on a nasty little 3-game losing streak, and really you've lost 4 out of your last 5. This looks eerily similar to last year. So you get Cincinnati at home. It's a bounce back game here. So, and I know Nick is just going off and cussing at me right now as this season starts to unravel. At Green Bay, I don't like that game. I don't think you sweep the Packers. So, naturally, that's a loss. And you're going to get the Bears this time around at the crib. Take care of business there. And if I'm not mistaken, that's going to put you at 9-7. Let's tally it up, though, and see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 9-7. You could easily win one of these 3 games and get you to 10-6. Probably that Lions game or that Panthers game would be the ones that I would choose as games that you could win. You could easily beat the Bears on a Monday night, but that's family business, and you saw what they did to you last year. And when a bad team gets a primetime game, they get up for it, especially against a divisional foe. And so I think the Bears might be game like they were last year on Halloween and find a way to get you. But nonetheless, I got the Vikings going 9-7 with a divisional mark of, let's jot down this 9-7 first. And you guys will correct me if I made another mistake, which I really appreciate. In the division, you are 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, 3-3 in the division for the Minnesota Vikings. And so, we'll take to Twitter. No action there. Let's see what you guys are talking about on YouTube. So, let's see where we will start with the comments. We will start, see where we left off at. This is where we'll start right here with my man Ouija HTTR. It says, games in Detroit always seem so strange. It's hardly ever a good watch for me. Me either, man. It was, for me, the 2 places I hated watching games on TV because they seem like just a dreary atmosphere, put you to sleep type of games. In Detroit at Ford Field and in St. Louis when the Rams were in the Edwards-Jones Dome. Those were some really sleepy atmospheres for me. The lighting always seemed a tad bit off, seemed a little darker in those stadiums, especially on television. And that's why I always feel like it's always a tough place to play in Detroit, when it probably, in all actuality, isn't that tough of a place to play. It just seems like it on TV. It just seems like a lot can go wrong in Detroit at Ford Field. But nonetheless, Jay Moose says, I haven't been to a two-a-days in years. Well, glad you could attend, man. Come inside, come inside. Nick Riley says, what people don't understand is Sam is solid quarterback. Never really had a good O-line at any point of his career. That is true, and we'll see what he does. And can he stay healthy? I was surprised he stayed healthy for the majority of the season last year. Cloud says, I'll say they go 10-6 if the O-line plays decent, that being the Minnesota Vikings. And I can see that. I have them at 9-7. They could easily go 10-6. They could easily go 11-5. They could easily go 8-8, 7-9 if the ball doesn't bounce their way. So they're one of those teams I could see being anywhere from 7-9 to 10-6 on the season. Nick says, three-headed monster at running back with Murray, Jet, Dalvin. Going to be scary. Another pickup I'm excited about is Will Sutton. Bears didn't use him right. Man will make plays, bro. I like Will Sutton coming out of ASU. I thought he was going to be a beast for the Bears. Never really materialized. And so if you can get to Arizona State, Will Sutton, you may have something there. We'll see. Nick Riley says, Matt was more of a fullback to me, a bully guy, beyond slow as hell, monster in the red zone, though. Yeah, I always used to get a kick out of Matt Asiata and those stat lines. They were hilarious. Nick said, Jake Long and Matt Khalil were straight asshole. Not going to miss them one bit. Yeah, they were a part of a bad offensive line. I know you're not going to miss them, but we will see. One man to watch out for this year is my boy Mac. I expect him to be a nice slot cornerback. Mackenzie Alexander is who I saw getting his ass toasted in the slot. We'll see. It was preseason. He may be better. We'll see if he plays well in the slot, because he was not a slot corner at Clemson. He was a boundary guy. So we'll see how he handles the two-way go of the slot in 2017. Nick says, we're going to win 10 to 12 games this year. No doubt in my mind, bro. Sean Mack says, I think the Vikings go 10-6. Cubone says, the Lions go 5-11. Vikings go 7-9. Nick says, come on, Lou, don't mess around and give us that L. No way. He must be talking about the Bears game. You lost to him last year. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Rookie quarterback, we're going to shake up Mitch. I don't see us losing to the Bears at all. How you know Mitch is going to be starting in week 4 or 5, whenever that game is? Still could be long neck. Mike Glennon could still be in the game, even though Mitch has looked really good. We'll talk about him when we get to the Bears. Nick says, you got to go to the Redskins-Vikings game this year so we can link up. Best believe I'm going to be there. If I get tickets, man, I will definitely look you up. Nick also says, man, you got me tripping over here, Lou. No way we losing to the Panthers. We ate them apart, LOL. I told you, that was a funny game because Sam Bradford really didn't play well in that game. But the special team stepped up, and you always seem to get some good returns throughout the course of the year from your cornerback. His name escapes me, but doesn't seem like he's extremely fast. But when he gets the football on punt returns, he always seems capable of making something happen, and he made something happen in that game. The defense forced some turnovers, and you won that game. But it was not pretty, and I think the Panthers will be a lot better this time around, so we'll see. Sean Mack says, Bears are going to be trash, bro. We'll see. We're going to talk about the Bears here in a little bit. If you remember when we played your boys at home last year, we almost came down and won. A holding penalty stopped our drive, and Pastor Diggs almost won us the game a little behind them. Hell yeah, our defense was horrible last year. You should have stole that game from us. I'm glad that pass was behind Stephon because he was wide ass open behind the defense. And I don't think that holding penalty certainly hurt you, but I don't think we were going to. I don't know. Our defense was so damn bad. You might have went down the field and scored. I thought you were going to score. I'm not going to lie. Really, it was a dumbass pick that Sam Bradford threw right to my defensive end, Preston Smith, in that game that I thought was a big game changer in that game. But nonetheless, Nick says, losing to the Bears that early in the season. Come on, fam. That's crazy. Mitch ain't ready for this. Again, you're assuming Mitch Trubisky. Mitchell. His mama named him Mitchell. I'm going to call him Mitchell. Is the quarterback. I'm still thinking Longneck's going to start. Even though Mitchell looks good, I think Longneck might still get the start. Sean Mack says, Washington's lack of running game scares me, bro. That's why I gave Minnesota the win there. And that's possible. We didn't have a run game last year when we beat them. So I don't know if that necessarily is something that scares me all that much. But, so that's where I think you guys are pretty much where I am with the Vikings. Some of you think they're going to be a little bit better than I think. Some of you think they're going to be a little bit worse. But like I said, I see them being anywhere from a 7-9 to a 10-6, possibly if the ball absolutely bounces their way, they stay healthy and they maximize the talent on their roster. I can see them getting to 11-5, but no higher than that. Sean, my man Nick at Night is talking 12-4. I definitely don't see that. But in any event, I've got them going 9-7 with a divisional record and a divisional record of 3-3 as we move on to the final team in this division, the Bears, the Chicago Bears, who last year I predicted at 6-10. I thought John Fox would take the worst roster in all of football and somehow squeeze the rag dry and get 6 W's out of that roster. Once Billy Ho went down, and again, I couldn't foresee Jay Cutler going down. I thought Jay Cutler would play the whole season, and they would find a way to win 6 games. Jay Cutler goes down, then Billy Ho goes down, and all hell broke loose. And Billy Ho was actually playing good football when he got injured. So instead of them going 6-10, winning 3 games in the division, they ended up 3-13 and 2-4 in the division. But they discovered Jordan, their running back, a guy that I was really impressed with in college at Indiana. Jordan Howard. And he came on strong like gangbusters, was one of the best rookies in all of football last year. And so they discovered something there at the running back position along with Langford, Jeremy Langford. They got some stuff at running back. They still got Carey back there. They went out in free agency, got Benny Cunningham. So they got some stuff to play around with at the running back position. Where I think they've made the biggest leap is at the receiver position. I actually think they got some stuff at receiver. How good is this stuff? I don't know. But they got some stuff. Okay, Alshon was never healthy. You're relying on a bunch of 2s and 3s to get it done. They actually got some stuff now. And so I'm anxious to see what they're going to do. They've got some stuff on defense now. They're starting to round into shape a little bit. And if they can stay healthy, they got Gumby over there rushing after the passer. He showed last year, of course I'm talking about Leonard Floyd, that he can get to the quarterback when healthy. They got some stuff. And John Fox is a guy that figures a way to win. So I can tell you right now, the Bears are going to be better than 3-13. Which is what they ended up last year. How much better? We're going to find out. But let's look at some of these offseason acquisitions, shall we? Quarterback Mike Glennon's first on the list. I still don't like the way they did my man Mike, a.k.a. Longneck. They did my man dirty. They invited him to the draft party at the goddamn stadium. He's out there signing autographs and chumming it up with the fans, only to get a knife in his back. Goddamn backstabbers. They smiling in your face all the time. They want to take your place. Them damn backstabbers. Backstabbers. Stab my man Mike in the back. He finally was going to get a chance to start without having to look over his shoulder. And now he got to take these damn knives out my back. What they do? Stab him in his back. But nonetheless, I think he's going to get the chance to start the season. But boy, that leash is going to be short after the preseason. Mitchell Trubisky is turned in. And so even when the man gets a chance, he really doesn't stand a chance. Anyway, Prince Amukamor, and I'm going to be honest with you too. Sometimes not playing is the best thing for a backup quarterback. Because when you get in the game, people really start to find out, hey, he's not really that good. I'm not saying that's the case with my man Mike. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, Prince Amukamara coming over on a 1-year deal. See if he can't help out this secondary. But this is where I think they made the biggest improvement to their roster. Because last year, was a bunch of no-names and a bunch of low-level guys. I thought they actually performed, though, at times. But nonetheless, you needed to upgrade the skill positions. And they did that in the offseason at tight end. They did that at receiver. Marcus Wheaton coming over from Pittsburgh. When he's healthy, I think he's a viable option in the slot. Victor Cruz. The Bears got Victor Cruz. Love this pickup. If he's healthy, he's still dangerous and able to salsa on some opponents. I love Victor Cruz. Kendall Wright coming over from Tennessee. Sometimes he's wrong. Sometimes he's right. We'll see if he's going to be right in Chicago. I think he's another guy that's going to give them some depth at receiver. Tight end Deion Sims comes over. Again, another guy when healthy. Big target at like 6'6", 6'7". Guy that can be a red zone threat. So I think you got some stuff at tight end now. Quentin Demps comes over, gives you some depth at the safety position. Benny Cunningham, as I mentioned earlier, gives you a little bit of depth in the running backfield. A guy that's versatile, catch it out of the backfield, run it, pass protect, and give you a little something on special teams. Even though I'm not a huge Benny Cunningham kickoff return guy, he can offer you that as well if need be. And of course, the steal of the offseason, place kicker, a.k.a. the GOAT, Roberto Aguayo, coming over after being cut by the Bucs. Nah, I'm lying. He's probably not even going to make this roster if he continues to kick the way that he's been kicking this offseason. He'll have a one-way ticket to out of the league if he's not careful. But nonetheless, you're a Bears football team that needs consistent kicking in the field goal game. You're going to need to find somebody that can put it through the uprights because you're not going to get in the end zone a ton, I don't think. I could be wrong. Key losses, Jay Cutler and Billy Ho, Brian Hoyer, both gone from this roster. So you start anew at the quarterback position, and I don't think you did half bad. I wasn't a fan of going out and getting Mitchell Trubisky, but I'm telling you, the young kid looks good. I wouldn't start him day one, though. I'd let him sit down and learn, and don't mess him up. Put him in right away. Eventually, he's going to play in his rookie season. But it doesn't have to be right out the gate. That's why you got Mike Glennon. Alshon Jeffrey and Eddie Royal are gone. Eddie Royal was solid for the Bears in his time there. Alshon Jeffrey thought he was going to be a Bear for a long time, but the injuries, the suspension, the inconsistencies, they just said, you know what, you're not worth the money nor the headache. And finally, defensive back Tracy Porter gone off this roster as well. When he's healthy, he's good. When he's not, he's not. Simple as that. And so you pretty much swapped out Prince Amukamara and Tracy Porter. That's basically it. Porter off the roster, Amukamara on the roster. So with that being said, let's look at the Bears in 2017, shall we? Let's take a look at this roster. Not this roster, the schedule. And I look at this schedule and I say to myself, they got a shot. A shot to do what, you ask? Be competitive. I respect John Fox. I respect what he does as a coach. And I think he's going to get these boys to play and play hard. And I think it's going to result in some W's in some spots where you're not expecting it to result in W's. But nonetheless, let's get to these games. You start the season off at home versus the Falcons. No. I don't think that's a winnable game. And so, I'm going to start them out with an L there. Tampa at Tampa. No. If that was a home game, that'd be something I'd consider. But it's not. And because of that, I think they take another L. Steelers at the crib. No. You know how I feel about that one. At Green Bay. That is a Thursday night football game. a game that I think they have a legitimate shot at being competitive in. But much like last year on primetime, and I want to say that even that last year's game was a Thursday game, if I'm not mistaken, where the Packers looked god-awful and Aaron Rodgers had 97 checkdowns, yet they still won the game. I see the Packers beating them again. So they start out 0-4. But they're competitive. So you go to Monday Night Football, you're 0-4, everyone's counting you out, you're lifeless. You get 10 days off before this game. Add an extra day in there. You get 11 days off before this game. You got everything going for you. You've beaten this Vikings team on Monday night before, circa 2016. Why not do it again? You get your first win of the season. Hey, how about that? Monday night, Vikings at the crib. You then follow that up with a Sunday game at Baltimore. No. If that were at home, again, I'd give you a shot. But no. Then you go and play the Panthers. You're home for the Panthers. That's not a win either. So we'll take and give you an L there. Let's pull that one down a tad. Then you are at New Orleans. No. That's not a win either. Don't worry, more wins are coming though. I promise. Then you get a bye week. A much needed bye week in week number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you get a week 9 bye. So splits the season right in half, directly in half. 8 before, 8 afterwards. At the bye, you're 1-7. So ouch. Does it seem like a lot of improvement? But I promise you, wins are on the horizon. Let's look at some of these other teams. Packers, I know you got to win somewhere in here. Yep. Let's look at the Lions. I think you got to win in there too. Yep. So your home games, you're cleaning up. And Minnesota, I already gave you a win versus them at the crib. So last year you found a way to win at home in the division. This year, you're going to find a way to win at home in the division against every team in the division once. Hey, how about that? So you follow that up with another W, this time versus the Lions at the crib. So all of a sudden, after coming out of the bye week, 2 wins in a row. What do you know? Then you're at Philadelphia. Winnable game against Carson Wentz and company, but I don't love you in that spot. So you're gonna take an L there. Then you got the 49ers at the Crizzo. And you beat the 49ers at the Crizzo last year. And I think you're gonna beat the 49ers at the Crizzo again. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity to get your 4th win of the season against the 49ers here at Cincinnati. I don't like you in that spot. So we'll give you a loss here. At Detroit, at Detroit. That's on a Saturday on NFL Network. I don't like you in that spot either. And you got the Browns at the crib. Go get you one, man. You should be able to beat the Browns at the house. And finally, Minnesota at Minnesota. You already got them once. Don't be greedy. Let's keep it real, partner. Give to the needy. They need that. They trying to make the playoffs. You not. Give it up. And so I got the Bears at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 11 on the season. So go ahead and put that in the old database. And while we're at it, let's put their tally in the division in there as well. We've got them going 0-1, 1-1, 2-1, 3-1. We got them going 3-3 in the division. Not bad. Not bad at all for John Fox as he tries to turn things around in Chicago. Once again, nothing much on Twitter. So we will take to YouTube and see what you got. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Bears might have drafted a kicker, Zane Gonzalez, out of Arizona State. He was a hell of a kicker too. So they might be fine. They might have just brought in some competition. I haven't seen what Zane Gonzalez is doing, but we will see. In any event, let's get to your comments. I know you guys are probably killing the Bears, but in any event, I'm going to read some of these comments. All right. Nick Riley says, after that Redskins game, instead of Captain Kirk, you call your man Captain Crunch because he's going to get crunched up. Our offensive line, pass protection-wise, one of the best in the league. I'm not worried about anybody's pass rush at all. Sean Mack says, Aguayo the GOAT. Bears winning it all now. Stop your nonsense. Nick says, I'm standing by what I said. Kevin White came out of West Virginia. 1 year wonder. Man's going to be a bust if he even sees the field. They're still waiting on Kevin White. I'm rooting for him, man. You never want to see a guy come out and injuries never give you a shot. He doesn't. The thing that scares me with him is even when he's healthy, he doesn't look all that impressive. Cloud says, Bears are trash, man. 5-11. 5-11 is an upgrade over last season. I expect them to be tough and compete. Cloud says receivers are okay, but Cruz can't stay healthy anymore. He was okay last year. He did have an injury last year, but he played through it. He was relatively healthy last year. Nick Riley says Mike Glennon is A1 booty hole. Ain't no one worried about that, man. Sean Mack says Bears are going 3-13, maybe with a break or two, 5-11. Ouija HTTR says, I think the Bears bought some expired salsa. It's going to be a bit fuzzy mold on the top. Yikes. Nick says Roberto is going to be on some Blair Walsh type-ish. I don't think he's going to make the roster. I think they got a kicker already. Like I said, I think they just brought him in. Competition. Never hurt anybody. Second round pick. You feel like he can't be that bad, right? Right? Wrong. The Blunt Report says Stafford will be a top 3 MVP candidate this year. Believe it. We will see. That's a bold statement. Q-Bone says Bears go 4-12. All right. Bears will go 4-12, says Nick. Wouldn't be surprised if they mess around and get swept in the division. Nah, they're going to beat somebody in the division. Sean Mack says, no, my Browns took Zane, bro. Okay, I knew Zane Gonzalez went to a team that needed a kicker. So I like Zane Gonzalez a lot. A lot. I think he's going to have a really good NFL career. And see, that's the stark contrast between him and Aguayo coming out of Florida State. I wasn't convinced that he was good, let alone good enough to be a second-round pick, whereas Zane Gonzalez, I think he's going to be a beast. Nick Riley says, man, the Bears going 3-3 in the division is crazy to me. Like, that's like the Nets making the playoffs in basketball. No, it's not. It's only 16 games. You only got to find a way to – that's like The Bears going 3-3 in the division is like the Nets playing the Warriors 20 times and beating them 5 times. It can happen. Probably not. But it can happen. Anyway, Slip Ammo says, you think Detroit and Chicago are on the same level? No, I don't. And I think I had Detroit going. Well, I think my record ended up being 5-11 for Detroit. I told you I think Detroit's more of a 7-9 type of team, but I think Chicago is getting better, and I think Detroit is mediocre at best. I don't think that they're on the same level. No, I told you my record indicates that the teams theoretically are on the same level. I don't feel that way though. I think the Lions are going to win some games that I didn't give them. And every year I feel like that about 2 or 3 teams where I'm like, you're not as bad as the record I gave you, but I can't give you wins because I don't think you're good enough. But they're going to win some games. So, no, I don't think they're on the same level. Dark Sealer 1995 says, Mike Glennon is like Forrest Gump. No pocket awareness and has the longest neck I've ever seen. That's why I call him long neck. The Bears got D. Number 94 is legit. Bears go 7-9, says the Blunt Report. Love me some Leonard Floyd, even though I don't trust him. Never trust those dudes with 2 first names. Even though Floyd can pass for a last name, I might let him slide. Sean Mack says Zane is 3 for 3 in field goals of over 50 yards in training camp. Hasn't missed a field goal point after in training camp or in OTAs and the preseason. I like Zane a lot. I told you, I think he's going to be a stud in this league. Bears' schedule is rough. That's why I have them so bad. It's rough. It's a rough schedule, but it's a doable schedule, and I think they play well against teams in the division. So I think they got a shot, man. 5-11. So to recap this division, I got the Bears bringing up the rear in this division at 5-11. I got Detroit at 5-11. I really don't have Detroit at 5-11. Let's be honest. I really had them at 6-10, and I think they're going to end up being 7-9 probably when it's all said and done. But for the purposes of this exercise, they're 5-11, and the way that I have it set up, they actually finished last in the division. The Bears finished third because of a divisional record. Minnesota comes in second in this division at 9-7 with a 3-3 mark in the division, and Green Bay is the creme de la creme at 13-3. I really think they're 12-4 though, but they're 13-3 for the purposes of this exercise and wins and losses. But they're a 12-4 team in my book, 4-2 in the division. So that's going to do it for the NFC North. I will see you guys next week. We have 2 games tomorrow on Thursday. Then the preseason, the dress rehearsal, week 3 of the preseason really gets underway on Friday with a ton of games. Saturday, then of course you've got the big Conor McGregor spectacle. I'm not going to even degrade boxing by calling that a fight. It's going to be a spectacle on Saturday. Then you got more preseason games on Sunday and Monday, and then basically the regular season. And then we'll get back to some more breakdowns next Tuesday and Wednesday. AFC West, NFC East on Tuesday, the 29th, and wrapping things up with the NFC West and the AFC South on the 30th as we continue our 2-a-day journey through all of the divisions in the National Football League. I'm your man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me on this program. Remember, like, share, and subscribe this video. If you're watching this video, if you were in the comment section and you participated, like the video, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie Tee Network. I will join you guys later on in the week as we'll have more content coming out. We'll have more coverage of week 3 preseason than we have in the first 2 weeks. So I'll definitely see you over the weekend, most likely. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie Tee, signing off. See you later on Enjoy your weekend. I know I will. Have a good one.